Guys, stop borrowing your girlfriend or wife shampoo. Get your own Dove Men Plus Care. Available at Walmart. Staying strong and resilient upstairs. Dove. Joy Taylor in a couple minutes. Michael Vick, some thoughts on Lamar Jackson, who is about ready to surpass some of Michael's rushing records. I'm not sure he likes that or not. We'll talk about that. So, it's interesting. Sometimes you have to look to what I call look through the other end of the telescope on stories. I try never to be too rigid on a story because sometimes you just get so rigid and you see the world one way and you turn the telescope around and you're like, oh, my God, there's a whole new world. And so I want you to remember this. Of the top 10 quarterbacks in the MVP race, one was a top 10 pick. And Patrick Mahomes wasn't initially a top 10 pick. Kansas City moved up to get him. I also want you to remember this. Of the 25 richest quarterbacks in league history, none made their money with their first contract. Don't pull your money out of a 401k. That's short-term thinking. Tua got hurt for Alabama. That's the best thing that ever happened to him as long as the surgery goes well, and we suspect it will. Because Tua's going to drop a little in the first round. The best thing that happened to Dan Marino, he dropped to Don Shula. And Aaron Rodgers dropped to stable Green Bay. And Dak dropped to the best offensive line in football. And Russell Wilson dropped to Pete Carroll. Folks, Tua's a smaller quarterback. Joy and I have said this. We worry about the injury thing. So do you want him to go to Cincinnati and that offensive line? And that owner? And that roster? Do you want him to go to Miami? Do you want him to go to some of these clown shows in the NFL? Or do you want him to drop out of the top 10 and make his real money in his second, third, and fourth contract? Because that's where all the guys make their money. And do you want him to go to Carolina at 18th and he can hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey? Or the Chargers at 12th and he can hand the ball to those backs and has that defense? Or Indianapolis at 22nd? Can you imagine inheriting that offensive line and that GM and Darius Leonard and that defense? Yes, Tua's probably going to drop in the draft. And 0 of the 25 richest quarterbacks made their money in the first contract. You make your money in this league by the second, third, and fourth contract. And you may have all the talent in the world, but Josh Rosen was basically given 6 games and the league bailed on him. And Mitch Trubisky, you're gone. This league bails on quarterbacks. Do you not think it helps Lamar Jackson? I hear people complaining about where Lamar Jackson got picked. Are you kidding me? I can go to Buffalo, I can go to Arizona, or I can go to Baltimore and John Harbaugh, and you're whining about where Lamar Jackson... That's the greatest thing that ever happened to Lamar Jackson. You think Lamar Jackson would duplicate this in Cincinnati? You're out of your gourd. You think Deshaun Watson inherited all those weapons, that defense? Now, it hasn't been perfect for Deshaun, but people are getting into this Tua thing. He's going to drop in the draft. If I had a son who was a little smaller at his position in the NFL quarterback, and it had a series of kind of injuries, and you ask me, Dad, where do you want him to end up? And I'd say, you know what I'd really like? I'd like him to go somewhere between 11 to 26 with a decent offensive line, a nice roster, a top running back, where he doesn't have to be a savior like Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, where he can go in, learn the offense, veteran head coach. I'd rather have the offensive line in Frank Reich in Indianapolis. I'd rather have the Chargers roster or Ron Rivera and Christian McCaffrey and make a little less money now and not be a savior. So I looked at Tua and I'm like, as long as this surgery, is completed and he's healthy, and I think, all indications are he will be, the new reality for quarterbacks is you don't want to be a savior. You're not making your money in your first quarter. You're going to tell me Baker Mayfield wouldn't be better today if he didn't inherit that situation and Baker Mayfield went to Baltimore? I got news for you. If Baker Mayfield was in Baltimore, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he'd be going to the playoffs. You cannot overcome dysfunction. And at the top of these drafts is nothing but dysfunction. Year after year, it's this. How many times is Miami going to draft in the top 10? How many times is Cincinnati going to draft in the top 10? The Jets going to draft in the top 10. Joy with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News. Well, Todd Gurley had one of his best games of the season last night.
He returned.
Yep. Rams 17-7 win over the Bears. Not a thriller, but good signs for the Rams.
Yeah.
He had a season high of 25 carries and 133 total scrimmage yards, as well as a touchdown. For Chicago, however, Trubisky was not playing well. 24 completions for only 190 yards and a touchdown and interception. He was pulled at the end of the fourth quarter for Chase Daniel, which had everyone a little bit confused. Really wasn't a straight answer about what was going on because he didn't look injured.
Yeah.
And his face showed a lot of frustration, but you couldn't really tell what it was from.
Yeah.
Well, despite the poor performance, the Bears are insisting he was taken out because he was dealing with a hip injury.
Some hip.
Matt Nagy and Trubisky said Trubisky landed on his hip earlier in the game and he wasn't feeling right.
My takeaway from that game is the Rams finally said, listen, we're just going to give the ball to Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
And whatever it means, but we can't keep pretending that we're going to pay him this money and not. You get to give Todd Gurley the ball 25 times and either unveil the fact that he's not the same guy, but this idea that you can pass your way with a bad old line to wins here. Last night, I thought the Rams actually, their offensive line run blocked really well.
No, I thought they were impressive last night.
Yeah.
And look, they've won 3 of their last 4 games.
Yeah.
Despite all the panic and critiques that we have of the Rams this year. Obviously, they're not having the season that they wanted to. But I'm with you. I don't know why this wasn't always the game plan. Just you know that you have Todd Gurley. You know you have to do it through the run. It's not that Jared Goff is particularly limited, but that's just how your offense is designed. Like, that's why you paid him that much money.
And he doesn't look, to be honest with you, he doesn't look like he has the burst he used to. He doesn't. But their offensive line, they're going to draft some people up front. They're going to clearly draft on the offensive line. Guys will get healthier. McVay's teams run through the running back, not the quarterback. And so let's use the guy you're paying a fortune to.
Right. And also their offensive line has taken a significant step back this year.
Yes.
Obviously, they had a lot of injuries. So that's really what the answer is. We're all trying to figure out what's wrong with the Rams. They have to fix the offensive line. They're going to be fine. I don't think there's too much to panic about there. Trubisky and the Bears, however, that's a completely different story. So the Falcons defense dominated the Saints last week.
Yeah.
They built on that impressive performance yesterday against the Panthers. Kyle Allen was just completely overwhelmed. He threw 4 interceptions. He was sacked 5 times. Allen has now lost 3 of his last 4 starts and has 9 interceptions in the last 2 games after throwing no interceptions in his first 4 starts. They were also penalized 8 times for 68 yards. Yeah,
last 2 weekends, Falcons have gotten pressure on the quarterback, and this is good. Kyle Allen was a transition piece. The league has film, and now you're seeing what appears to be very clear. He's a very limited quarterback. You're not going to build around him. Now you better get Cam Newton's phone number again or do something else. But I think this is what the league does. Young guys, Gardner Minshew, come out, and they surprise everybody.
Right.
And everybody gets film after about 7 games. And then they change stuff up, and a handful of them, Dak Prescott, Jimmy G, they just keep getting a little better. And then some of them you're like, well, okay, that doesn't work. And this has been there's been a lot of clarity for the Panthers this year.
Yep.
McCaffrey's a star. Kyle Allen's not the future. We've got Cam that we can move or keep. To me, this team's not a Super Bowl team, but I'm getting all sorts of clarity now.
Well, they're in the position that I think that all teams should try to remain in, which is competitive.
Viable.
Don't just completely fall off the map. Don't try and have to rebuild your entire franchise and get rid of your 1 star. I still don't think that Cam is going to end up staying there because it just feels like
it does.
It just, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what the word is for it, but it just feels like the separation is happening, regardless of how bad Kyle Allen is playing.
Let me throw something out to you. I had a discussion this week. So Phillip Rivers does not want to move his family to Los Angeles. Carolina goes after Phillip Rivers. The Chargers, who have somewhere between the 12th and the 13th pick, that's going to be Tua territory. It's going to be Jacob Eason territory. Very interesting. They're moving into a new stadium. Phillip doesn't want to go there. He's from the Carolina area. And wouldn't Phillip for 2 years, though? As you draft a quarterback, be a nice transition piece. Phillip can still play. I think he leads the NFL in passing yards. He may win tonight. That's an interesting one to me.
I have a hard time believing that they are really actually going to move off of him. But it is interesting. I mean, I think Cam to Chicago or Cam to L.A. makes the most sense. I mean, Cam is a superstar, so in L.A. that would work. And, I just think that the Bears are in a win-now situation, so that makes sense there, too. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't want to leave San Diego. He's going to go across the country.
Two really good rosters in this league are going to draft a quarterback. Indy and the Chargers. And whatever, because Jacoby Brissett's got a year left.
Right.
And Phillip Rivers, I think they're moving on. They're looking for juice at quarterback. Just keep your eye on the Chargers in that 15th draft spot, because some young college kid's going to walk in and be like, I got Pro Bowlers everywhere into a new stadium.
And that's the ideal situation.
Tua in L.A., Just keep your eye on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Finally, Kobe Bryant was seated courtside last night for the Lakers' 122-101 win over the Hawks. LeBron put on a show. He had 33.7 rebounds and 12 assists in the win, and he spoke with Spectrum Sportsnet after the game about how special it is to play in front of Kobe.
It's fantastic. I know he came to a game last year, and just having him in the building, just knowing what he did, what he meant to this franchise, what he means to L.A., and for me and my teammates, what it means to be a part of the Laker Nation, the Laker family. It's a beautiful thing. For me, I grew up watching. It's just so surreal for me, just from a kid from Akron, to be able to have a guy like Kobe. Just take time out of his day, even at this point in my career, is still special.
Boy,
it was
LeBron's
a nice
played.
moment.
Yeah, and by the way, LeBron looks great. Holy God, does he look good. He's averaging like 11 and a half assists. I cannot believe how good the Lakers' chemistry is.
Well, I do think that was my takeaway from this story and what the Lakers are right now. I do think that Frank Vogel deserves a lot of credit. I mean, before the season, we were thinking this was going to be a disaster or they were going to struggle a little bit. LeBron, newly put together teams are usually a little bumpy. What's going to happen with Jason Kidd?
There's been
no drama.
No bumps.
They're playing, right, zero. LeBron is playing incredible. They have excellent chemistry. They're top of the Western Conference. I don't know what more you could ask for.
And they are
Lakers.
really good defensively. They're long. Now, again, it's an older roster in spots. You start to think to yourself, okay, let's just cross your fingers on the knees banging knees and the guy's out 2 weeks. They are really good chemistry-wise, really early. And they, by the way, defensively, I think they're the longest team in the league. I think they lead the NBA in defensive efficiency. You watch them play. They get their hand. They block 7 to 8 shots a night. They're so long.
They've been really
have.
impressive. And the way that LeBron has come back, it's almost, weirdly, you're talking about Tua's injury. Some things, when they happen, might end up being a blessing because he had that extra time off, not having to go through a strenuous, long playoff run.
And I've never seen LeBron this fresh.
He looks great.
He looks incredible. And he's only playing 35 minutes a night, which is the least of his career. So, injuries are not the end of athletes. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.